Hello everyone and welcome to this week's ASMR Ramble Pop Culture Talk, which I have decided to call Beyonce She Done Already Done Had Horses, which was a joke originally said by Leslie Jones on Drag Race, parodying a line that they always say on that show. But I wanted to call this week's video that because obviously Renee on the album cover, but also because sometimes I see Beyonce's work in cycles, and I think the term cheapens what I mean to say, but it's almost like she upcycles, takes what she's done before and elevates it. She's having fun and pushing farther because she's already done the work. She's already done had. Hers is. For this video, I want to take that line of thought and apply it to her solo studio albums. Have my notes down here so I don't ramble too much. And although each album is very distinct in of itself as a body of work, and the eras attached to the albums are very distinct in themselves, to me there are parallels between her earlier works and her current releases, and elements of upcycling. Now, to contextualize, I didn't actually become a Beyonce fan until around 2014 when I heard her self-titled album for the first time. For me, this was my introduction to Beyonce as more than just a radio name. Now, with 4 album releases experienced as a Beehive boy, I've learnt about the impact and significance of that first introductory self-titled album and where it stands sort of in the grand lore of Miss Carter. Her first solo album, Dangerously in Love, introduced the world to who Beyonce is outside of her girl group. Her 5th album, self-titled, introduced the world to Beyonce outside of the conventions of regular pop systems. Dangerously in Love's cycle gave the essence of what a star is, whereas self-titled solidified Beyonce as a music industry legend. What's more, the themes and emotions of Dangerously in Love, I feel, are reflected in a more mature eye in self-titled, exemplified, I think, most clearly by the parallel between Crazy in Love to Drunken Love. Her sophomore album, Be They, likewise mirrors Lemonade in my mind. Both albums are a cohesive visual project, and where the preceding albums for each focus primarily on the aspects of being in love, these albums are distinct in centering Beyonce, braggadocious and betrayed, independent. Where they differ is in the storytelling. B-Day was presented as Beyonce just saying things she wished a character she played had said. Whereas Lemonade draws upon Worsenshire's poetry within the work to present a sort of linear emotional journey. It was also given no formal interview to sort of contextualize its intent. Track link-ups, I Can See, Ring the Alarm to Don't Hurt Yourself, Irreplaceable to Sorry, Resentment to Love Drought. On the whole, I do think Lemonade is pretty incomparable in Beyonce's catalog and in music at large, but I wanted to present it in this way to lead up to the main point of this video, which is Beyonce's latest studio album, Act 1 Renaissance. Now, if you're following where I've been going with this, you'll see that Renaissance, or the 3 acts, is taking the place of I Am SASHA FIERCE. And before you call me crazy, let me present some already seen similarities. Firstly, we have the return of Radio Beyonce, with Beyonce's first solo Billboard #1 hit since the I Am SASHA FIERCE era. Secondly, we have Promo Beyonce back, updated RIAA certifications, advertisement posters. She's giving interview again, albeit in magazines. She's come off a year of Ivy Park and Tiffany campaigns, which have brought the image of Beyonce everywhere again. And thirdly, and what we are really going to talk about today, is that the album goes beyond just one disc. where I Am SASHA FIERCE explored the dichotomy of pop star versus soulful singer with a 2-disc setup. Renaissance is a 3-act project, and today we are going to discuss what we think Act 2 and Act 3 could be. Okay, so what do we know so far? We know that some producers, I think from Virgo's Groove, are involved in some capacity, because Daniel, Soul, and Carly gave interviews where they actually talked about hearing music from the other 2 albums. And that's really sort of it. I haven't looked too deep into it, but that's been what I could gauge when I've been reading about Beyonce online. But there are many things still being conspired. It is generally conspired and speculated that the next 2 albums will not be in the same genre of music. There are people saying that the 3 albums will reclaim genres originated by Black American artists, but are now currently propagated by white artists. House music being the first, with rock and roll as well as country thought to be being in the mix. There is also an idea that one of the 3 albums could be a covers album, although I can't really see that having traction, and I don't really know where that came from, so I'm okay with putting that on the back burner. Another speculation, more related to the visuals, is that Beyonce wants to take us back to her youth, trips down memory lanes, humanize herself as she often does with her work off the stage. Lastly, and one conspiracy I am personally partial to, is that Beyonce will continue following the artistic periods, meaning Enlightenment, Romanticism, Modernism is all on the table. Given how Beyonce said she doesn't really like doing what people expect, I probably think this isn't going to actually happen, but I make a solid argument for it later on in the video if you want to continue watching. And if you aren't already passed out by how relaxing my crazy thoughts are. Okay, back to the script so I stop rambling. We don't have an idea for when the album will be released. Some say the next one could be out as early as before Christmas this year, and I also saw someone say on Twitter that Beyonce releases in relation to astronomical events, such as supermoons and stuff, but I don't know if that's true. If anyone would do that, it would be our little alien superstar Beyonce. In this video though, primarily I want to talk about what the themes and sounds could be for the next 2 albums. And she's already given us a pretty big clue by telling us that Renaissance is just Act 1 of 3. The 3-act structure is a classic in Western literature. I'm sure I don't need to walk you through it, but just in case, Act 1 would be where the world and the characters and the settings are introduced, and Act 1 usually ends with an inciting incident, which spurs the story into an Act 2. However, if I Am SASHA FIERCE is anything to go off, I imagine that the other 2 acts aren't going to be a sonic continuation of Renaissance, or even a continuation of the vibes, for lack of a better word. I believe this because Renaissance doesn't actually really have an internal storyline, instead focusing on specific themes and aspects of our identity. Summer Renaissance, though, is a nice resolution to the dance, to the party that is established in the album. So if there isn't going to be a linear story with an inciting incident, conflict, resolution, hero's journey, all that leads me to assess what other forms of art present in 3 parts, if not the 3-act structure. The one that comes to mind is the classic structure of essays, where a thesis is presented, and then an antithesis or antithesis, and from an exploration of those 2 we come to a synthesis. Based on this, I want to go back to the themes of Renaissance. It focuses on the sensory, on the sensual experience of parties, of moving bodies, of self-love, and how that self-love informs others to love us. The internal aspect of identity for me are how she goes from feeling isolated and alone in her body. She's that girl, separate, alien superstar, one of one, to realizing her body is God-given, created not by a man, embracing that uniqueness and starting to interact with other bodies again. Can't be standoffish, she's heated, she needs to cool down, she needs you to move out of the way, but also this is just how she moves. And then she's like sharing it, she wants you stuck in her honey, she wants to thug you, this, that summer, this, that hummer. A criticism put to me by a friend is that the album is not lyrically deep to them. It's just, and I quote, "I'm a bad bitch, I'm in the clubs, I like my body being liked." In short, it focuses a lot on the human body. And that made me think about the trio of body, mind, soul that is often talked about in self-perception and self-nourishment, even referenced by Bey herself in her last album, The Gift, in the song Already. Renaissance is the body part, the thesis, the physical, the itching, the crave, the enjoying the plastic off the sofa, the party. The lyrics focus on the senses and the music demands a physical reaction. It makes you want to move. And it adds up because while I think Beyonce named Renaissance more in the ideas of re-emergence and rebirth, the Renaissance period is actually characterized by lavishness, focus on man, self, naturalism, and humanism. It is generally seen as a brighter yang push era with innovations in depictions and understandings of the human body. So understanding it all in this lens, I believe Act 2 will follow the artistic periods, moving into enlightenment, focusing on the mind. The antithesis, the antithesis, is that the party is over. Beyonce questions her place in things, her role as a daughter, wife, mother, artist. Echoes of house music permeate, but Beyonce hasn't been at her home, the stage, in years. Our place in the world, I think, lends itself to an album of similar structure to Renaissance, where there's not necessarily a through line, but more an exploration of this aspect. Characteristics of the Enlightenment period are critical thought, thinking of our place in the world, of how we govern ourselves, how we establish reason and purpose. Beyonce has always been about the artistry. When she had her come up, she really talked about, just wanting to be able to entertain and provide the same feeling she got when she saw Whitney, when she saw Michael. And now in more recent years, she has shifted into the more of the auteur. But questions to explore could be, how do you reflect the times? How do you remain grounded? How do you go from being a mother of one to a mother of three? How do you make art knowing that it's going to be measured more than it's going to be enjoyed? How do you connect? How do you feel about being rich in some ways and poor in others? What drew me to Self-Titled on the first listen were songs like Ghost, Mine, Jealous, XO. That's why I know she is capable of discussing such things. But that being said, exploring this would render the album quite unrelatable and might read as self-indulgent or holier than thou. This is the album, though, where I believe country would be involved in. Given that Beyonce is a country girl at heart and has already dipped her toes into the genre with songs like Daddy Lessons, I believe the stylings of country could carry an exploration of this aspect of her. Not that I am much of a country music listener, but I do know that the general idea is to give the audience 3 chords and the truth, meaning you might make simple music or even simple lyrics, but it's honest. It's not singing at you, but to you, with you. Something I've always found interesting is how in her self-titled documentaries, Beyonce talked about how before she was famous, she was that girl on the hill with a guitar. Not many Beyonce songs, I think, lend themselves to vocals and guitar besides maybe the B-Day stuff, and especially Resentment. So to have a sort of semi-acoustic Beyonce album, I think could add a really brand new sound to her catalogue. And in fact, one thing I wish that had happened during Beachella, not that I think that show needs improving or needed anything else or even had room for this, but one thing that I wished was that we got just one song with just her and the guitar sitting on the corner of the bleachers, because to me that's such a quintessential image of being a high school music kid. But that being said, I've never been to a HBCU which served as inspo for this, for that performance, so I'm probably just talking out of my ass right now. And yeah, that idea actually does sound a little corny now that I say it out loud, but I would just love for Beyonce to have a little tiny desk moment. I think that'd be so cool to experience. But okay, back to the topic at hand. The last speculated genre for this project is rock and roll, the most popular genre of music in America until rap unseated it. Act 3 would be the synthesis. The last aspect of the self we have yet to explore is the soul. And the next artistic period is Romanticism. And let's start there. The Romantic period was a return to the lavishness of enjoyment, of virtuoso, of stylized. Things were less structured, more spontaneous. Works were more ebb and flow, free from rules. Where reason grounded the Enlightenment period, imagination spurred the Romantics. Devotion to beauty and its dark side, to the natural world, were prominent. When you think of soul as the final part of the self to be explored for this project, it could be natural to think of soul as the genre to do this in. When you think about the hallmark traits of the Romantic period, it could be natural to link that to R&B. But when you think of Act 3 as the synthesis to Act 1 and Act 2, I think that's where you see how rock and roll could be reclaimed and utilized. Rock lends itself to being messy while also being self-assured, and it's quintessential Americana. Beyonce's dabbles into the genre over the years have proved enticing. Take her cover of Sex on Fire by Kings of Leon, or when she performs Don't Hurt Yourself live, she might just very well break our souls. Anyways, everyone, I don't really have too many critical thoughts. I tried scripting this for ages and, I was just rambling heaps, and I hope I made sense. But I'm happy to have finally said it on camera, and I'm very happy to be wrong about all of this. But I just wanted to speculate and point a finger to the future, because I am excited. And I think, and if I'm wrong, at the end of the day, I hope I at least provided a sort of rambling ASMR that can help someone relax. I never know how to end these pop culture videos, so let me just say thank you. I hope you're well. Eat fruit, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.